Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. It's Kathy with Carolina Art Parties coming to you with part 2 of making this fall junk journal. Made the cover the other night out of cereal box cardboard and covered it with fabric. And then added another piece of fabric across the spine to create this look. It is folded around to the inside and glued down, and this little flappity piece is one of the things I'll be doing tonight. So give me just a minute to make sure that I've got this coming into the right place, and we will be ready to go. Hang on just a second. Not sure if I have it or not. Yep, I think we've got it. Make sure the volume is down on that device. If you jump on here, please say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. And more important, what are you doing to be creative? Are you working on a junk journal or another mixed media project? Or maybe you're Zen doodling? Let me know. What kind of creative arts are you using to relax today or this week? And if you're not doing anything, what do you think you might be interested in? If you're not sure, keep watching. This just might inspire you. Like I said, I made the cover from cereal boxes covered with fabric. You don't have to use fabric. You could cover it with scrapbooking paper or whatever other decorative paper that you find interesting. Okay, let's get moving. I have decided on this one to do a little bit differently. You can see the tape. This is bookbinding tape that reinforces between the front cover, the spine piece, and the back cover. And I'm going to cover that with a piece of fabric, the same type of fabric that is on the outer cover. And I am just going to glue that right in. I'm going to use Fabri-Tac to do it. And I'm just going to fold it under just a little bit, and I'm going to glue it right here along the edge. The reason that I'm doing this is so that we don't see the cardboard and binding tape in the little bit of a gap that is sometimes created between the spine piece, which will hold the signatures, and the decorative papers that will cover the inside cover. If that doesn't quite make sense, just stay tuned and you'll see what I'm talking about. Give me just a second to glue this down. Just need to get this outer edge a little bit tighter, or a little bit more to the outside. Stay there. Now again, I could have ironed that, but I don't feel like I really need to because it's going to stay glued down. It's going to do just fine. Alrighty. See, I think I will just go ahead and run a little bit of glue. You don't want to put too much glue because you just don't need a whole ton of glue. If you're using Fabri-Tac, that stuff is pretty strong and it will glue it down. Okay, let me just get this middle piece down. The edges are not too critical in this because they'll be held down by the decorative paper that's going to go here and here. This is really just to cover up that little gap area. This is certainly not the only way to create a junk journal. There are many other ways it can be done. This is just one way to work on your journal cover and getting it ready for signatures. Does everybody know what a signature is? A signature is just simply a group of pages. A group of pages that is going to be attached to create the inside pages of the book. Because a cover without pages is not much of a book, is it? And that's where all the really fun magic happens, is on your signature pages. But we need a cover to hold it. So right now, that's what I'm finishing up, is the cover. All right, let me just press that down for a minute here. It is not exact, but that's okay. Doesn't need to be. Okay, that's going to cover that center area. All right. Now I'm doing this one a little bit different than some folks. I'm not going to sew my signatures all the way through the actual book. You can do that and you'll have the stitches on the outer edge. I could have done that and had the stitches here and then covered the stitches with fabric or other decorations. Instead, I'm going to use a separate piece of cardboard. This is just 2 strips glued together. They are 2 1/4 wide by 9 inches tall because my journal is 9 inches tall. And it will go right here. It's a little bit narrower than the actual area that when I fold this up, you don't want it to butt up all the way against the sides. You want it to be a little bit of a gap. I know you can't see that gap there, but when I put it up, there you go. I think in the camera you can see there's just a little bit of a gap on either side. And of course I don't want the cardboard to show on this either. So I'm also going to cover this spine piece with a small piece of this fabric. I'm going to actually attach my signatures to this piece of cardboard that's covered with fabric and then glue the whole thing in. And in that case, then we won't have any ugly gaps showing. So let me go ahead and glue that real quick. And we'll just do that this way. I do like to make my spines and my covers rather sturdy. I tend to put a lot of pages and put a lot of embellishments on my pages. I love decorating it. That, to me, that's the fun part. Lots of tags and pockets and tucks and lace and doilies and all the fun things. And in order to accommodate all of that, I feel like I need to have a good sturdy book. There are lots of other ways to do them. You can find people on YouTube. Over time, I'll hope to share lots of other ways with you as well. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and do this one. Okay, let me see. I guess I should have clipped those corners a little bit. Let me do that real super quick. At least a little bit. Don't be too bulky. Not too critical, but I'm just going to do a little bit. There we go. Well, hello there, Gloria. How are you tonight, girl? My bumpa-nose friend. Did you know that I used to have a red nose too? Yes, 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 I did. Many, 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 many years ago, I worked as a professional clown. Go figure. That's where I learned doing balloon animals and face painting. Yes, I did. I hung up my shoes when I moved to South Carolina. And then years later, I started Carolina Party Artist. We did face painting and balloons happily for 10 plus years here in the Charleston area. And, oh, I got string stuck to my fingers. Unfortunately, COVID shut that part of our business down. And so the bad news is that I don't get to do all that fun stuff with the kiddos out at lots of events anymore. The good news is it gave me a lot of time to pursue other art that I never used to have time for, especially junk journaling. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I do hope to do some more face painting in the future. Just don't know when or how much, but we'll see. In the meantime, I'm keeping busy with scissors and glue and paper and fabric. All right, there is my little spine piece. I'm going to set that aside to dry because right now I'm not ready to sew the signatures in yet. Okay, let me just show you back to my book cover. At this point, if my fabric had a specific design where I wanted one side or the other to be the front, this would be a time to mark it on the inside because it's real easy to accidentally attach things upside down. In this particular one, it does not make a bit of difference. I don't think one side looks much different from the other, so I don't really have a front and a back yet. I went ahead and pre-cut some things to save a little bit of time. I've chosen this. Let me see, let me get it straight out here. You're going to see it sideways anyway, so I'm not sure it matters, but I'm going to use these decorative pieces of scrapbooking paper, which I have cut to size. They will fit just on the inside of the front and back covers, kind of like that. And as you can see, this fabric piece that I just added will keep there from being any gaps. And this will be the decorative part of the front and back. The signatures will come out here and we'll be ready to go. We'll have a book. There you go. If you've made a journal, an art journal or a junk journal like this, let me know. What is your favorite way to do it? Now, I'm not going to glue these in quite yet. Well, you know what? I can do that. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I take it back. I'm going to go ahead and use the Fabri-Tac. Not absolutely necessary at this point, even though it's some fabric involved, only because it's just right here. It's handy. So I'm going to go ahead and use it. Sometimes I use the Beacon 3-in-1 at this point. I'm sure there are other glues that would work as well. But this is right in front of me, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. The only thing I want to make sure is that I do not get it too close to this, the bend. What do you call this? The place where the book bends. You don't want it too close because you don't want it to bump up against it. There we go. Let's just press that down for a minute. Another good reason to use Fabri-Tac when you're doing live is that it sticks pretty quick. You use that glue too? Yes, Gloria. Fabri-Tac is good stuff. I use Fabri-Tac, I use Beacon 3-in-1, and I use glitter glue. All three. I don't often use glue sticks. A lot of folks do use them, but I don't know. I just don't have as much luck with them. Maybe I don't have the good kind. I used glue sticks for so many years teaching kindergarten, but they're not really something I use in my particular junk journaling very much. We do have some around here, I'm sure. Just not what I'm going to use right now. Real important to make sure you put the caps on every time you use this stuff because it will dry out. Okay. Ta-da! I now have a completed, or pretty much completed, junk journal cover. Okay. Oh, I almost forgot. If I were going to put a ribbon piece, it should have probably been glued in between this one and this one, but I'm going to do something a little bit different for this one. I'm going to set that aside to dry as well. And again, to save time, I've gone ahead and chosen some papers to use for signatures, and I'm just going to kind of show you what I have. The other day, y'all might have seen at a thrift store, I got a boatload of 2 bags of fabric that were cut in circles to make yo-yos. And I was like, oh my goodness, for 50 cents a bag, I had to get them. And I had to figure out what to do with them. So one of the things I figured out was I was going to make some little pockets with some of these fabric yo-yos. I know I have glue and everything on my fingers. Sorry about that. So this is made with 2 of the circles, 2 matching ones. This part back here goes all the way around on the back. I should show you this way. It's 1 circle with just a little zigzag stitch around it. I've gone ahead and glued some embellishments on that. The pocket portion is a 2nd circle that I folded down, not quite in half, folded down and just sewed it to this part. Then I've decorated it and I've made a little circular booklet and tucked it in. Anyway, that was one of the things I thought, I can do that with some of these fabric circles. So I went ahead and made 1 page, or 1 double page, I guess you could call it, that's going to be a part of this particular junk journal. The rest of my pages are not decorated yet. That's the only one. So basically what you do is you just choose however many pages you want. Now again, because I tend to get very heavy with adding a lot of pockets and tags, I don't want to use so many pages that my journal becomes what we call a gator mouth. I don't want it hanging open too far. So I use about 10 pages, sometimes between 8 and 12 per signature. And the way we count them is this. This is 1 piece of paper, 1, 2, this is from a coloring book, 3 from just a some kind of little prompt book or writing book that I had with lines on it. I like the colors of it. That's 3. This is some of that handmade, what do you call this paper? Oh gosh, I forgot, not rice paper, it's got another name. It eludes me right now. It's real thin and real pretty, and it's got little pieces of fibers, and this one doesn't have very much of the plant matter in it, but it's real thin and real pretty. Anyway, that one is, I think, number 4. Tea dyed paper, number 5. Graph paper, that's also tea or coffee dyed, number 5. Another piece of tea or coffee dyed paper is 6. Composition music paper is 7. Another tea dyed paper with some other colors on it is 8. No, that's not right. Let me count again. I should count and not talk. I think it's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. And what I call the cover for this particular signature, and it's not technically a cover, this is a piece of scrapbooking paper that's a little bit thicker. What I've done with this scrapbooking paper, my goodness, my mouth doesn't want to work, is I have cut the sides down to make it the right length. But instead of cutting off the bottom part, I folded it up, which is going to create some automatic pockets. They have to be glued yet, but it's going to create pockets. That will be the outer portion of this particular signature. So these 10 papers, if you count fronts and backs, they create more than 10 pages, don't they? Absolutely. Now, you'll notice that when I fold them up together, some of them are coming out wider than others. I'm not worried about that right now because some of them will get tabs on them, some will have lace on them, and I can always trim some later. I'm not going to worry about that yet, as long as, in general, the whole thing fits inside of our book. And see, if it were sewn in, it's just about the right size. It does stick out just a little bit, but again, that can be trimmed in a little bit. I'm not worried about it. So that is how you create one signature, okay? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that all the pages are centered or placed where I want them. Sometimes when there's a short page, you want it all the way at the top or all the way at the bottom. This one I'm just going to keep kind of in the middle. It doesn't matter if it's not exact. It's very common in junk journaling to have pages of different heights, not unusual. One way you can do these is you can go ahead and decorate them before you put them into the journal, kind of like I did this one page. Or you can just attach them into this, put the signatures in the journal and then decorate them. If you're going to sew around the outside of the pages, obviously you need to do that before putting it in. For this particular journal, I am not going to sew around all the pages, so I'm going to go ahead and I put 4 paper clips to kind of hold it nicely together. So this one is ready to sew onto my spine, okay? That's one signature, all right? This book is going to have 3 signatures. So here's the second one. And again, I've gone ahead and cut these out so that it would save some time. You get pretty bored watching me sort all these papers. But just again to show you some of the variety, this is a page from a book that had larger print writing. Now some people are bothered by the fact that this is going to be sideways writing. I'm not going to let that bother me because by the time I decorate it with pockets or tags, it's really just going to become part of a background. I may even stamp some other images on top of this so that the writing kind of fades into the background. Okay, another piece of this lined paper. This paper was also wider than it needed to be for the book, so instead of cutting this particular one, I folded each of the ends back. That will create some little tuck spots in the journal. Okay, coffee or tea dyed paper. This is music writing paper. Same thing here. It was wider. This is very wide. It's from a tablet. That's a real wide tablet. And so instead of cutting them off, I fold them in to create pockets or tuck spots. And tea-dyed paper, craft paper. Much of them are the same from one signature to another. Another piece of tea-dyed paper. Here's another piece, and this is a better example of that rice paper or whatever it's called. You can see the fibers and the pretty pieces of, I don't know, botanical pieces, I guess you'd call them. You can see through it a little bit. You see my fingers under there? Not completely see-through, but it makes a really pretty effect in a journal. Sometimes I do use it. I have the colors complemented this fall theme too. This was a piece of scrapbook paper that just had a very neutral design on one side, and I tea dyed the back of it. A little bit of the tea dyeing got onto this side as well. And here's a perfect example of, I grabbed this and was looking at it like this. When I get to this page, why is this up here? Well, guess what? It's supposed to be over here. This is going to become pockets at the bottom. So here's where you have to start paying attention. Where's the top and where's the bottom? I don't think any of the rest of these pages matter, top or bottom. But you do need to be careful as you start putting your signatures together that you figure out where the top and bottom are. Again, I'm going to kind of just double check and make sure they're centered. That's a bigger issue if you have really smaller pages, or if you're using doilies, things like that, where it's going to be real important where you place them. Okay. Again, I'm going to put 4 paper clips right here just to hold it in place for sewing. That is signature number 2. Third signature, again, pre-cut just to save some time. just to give you an idea, there's a little bit of variety. You could use all the same papers in a journal. You don't have to use any different ones, but most of us that do junk journaling do tend to use a variety of pages. Some printed, some non-printed, etc. A lot of these tea or coffee dyed papers are ones that I've done, and this was a fun one. I forget who I saw do it, but instead of dunking the entire paper into the dye at one time in a flat pan, I laid it in the pan and used a paintbrush to go around the outside. And as I applied more and more of the coffee dye, to the edges, around the pan by the edges of the paper sort of soaked the color in towards the center. I let it get completely covered, and then I went back and added some additional dye around the outside. And I thought it turned out kind of pretty. I'm going to use that for the center of this one. Another piece of that dyed graph paper. I like having a variety of colors. I don't necessarily like them all to be the same shade. Not sure if they show exactly on that screen. Here's one I don't think was in the other journal, is a piece of this ledger paper that's light green. Here's some dot paper. And let's see, I think this is an envelope. Let me show you how that works, okay? This was a large envelope, and I cut there was a flap right here that folded over. I cut the flap off completely. I cut one end of the envelope completely off. This end over here is still together. This is not a standard size envelope. And instead of folding it all the way in half, making two very short ends, I folded it so that this front side, if you will, is going to be kind of the same size as the other pages, and there'll be a very short one on this side. Okay, does that make sense? And I'll place it right in there. There'll be some gluing of parts to make it into pockets later. Here's another piece of scrapbook paper that's tea dyed. Some of that music composition book, and this one the person had actually started writing in with pencil very lightly. So I erased it just a little bit more, but left just a little bit of it there. Didn't bother me at all. Who knows if any of it'll even show. Another tea dyed paper. And for the quote-unquote cover of each of these, I did use another piece of scrapbook paper folded up to make pockets. So that is signature number 3. Again, I'm just going to kind of make sure they're where I want them to be. And in this case, I want that envelope to be right there, pretty much in the center. And again, I'm going to put paper clips in place. So I do have some of the same papers in each of the signatures, but also some variety. I do like to put about the same number of pages in each signature. It doesn't have to be an exact number. Kind of depends on what you have in mind to do on some of those pages. If you already know you're going to make a really thick element, you might want to vary that. So there are my 3 signatures. Like I said, they will all be sewn to this spine, and the spine will be attached into the book. And there you go. Can you see it? The beginning of a book. Now, when I lay this down, let's see if I stand it up, maybe you can see it from the camera. It does not, well, if I let go, it's going to pop open because it's not attached yet. But I can still close it down. There's plenty of extra room, which is where I'll have space to put tags and do a lot of decorating. I could have put more pages in it, and you can certainly do that, but I like to try to leave lots of room. All right, next step is actually sewing. Let me grab my needle and thread. Oops. You can use a number of kinds of threads for this. You can use waxed linen. You can use, excuse me, let me just grab this real quick. Oops, I got the wrong one. Sorry. I thought I had everything out, and boom, all of a sudden I don't. I'm going to use some sturdy thread. I forget what this is called, but it's quite sturdy. It's not the waxed type, although you could use the waxed. And I'm just going to use a large, not too sharp needle. You want to use a piece of this thread that is roughly 3 times the length of one of your signatures, or the height, I mean. So I'm going to just do it 1, 2, 3 times, I'm probably not at all exact on this. I would rather err on the side of extra to make it easier to tie. Okay, I've threaded that needle. You can make a template for this if you want to make your holes exactly. I'm not too worried about it. The next step is I'm going to take this awl. That's an old one that I found at a thrift store. And I need to move the glue mat real quick. Oops. So that I can use my self-healing mat for this part. Actually, I'm going to grab one more thing to put under it. No, that'll do. It'll be fine. Okay, I'm just going to use my ruler and just find the center. And it is, let me see if I can turn it this way. Sorry, guys. I know this is hard to see. It is about 9 inches from the very top to the page that's at the very bottom. So what I want to do is I want to mark in the center at 4.5. It does not have to be exact, guys. I promise. It does not have to be exact. It just needs to be in the middle of the book, okay? I'm doing it with a pencil so that I can erase it later. I'm also going to turn it over on the back. I'm going to do the same thing on the back. I'm going to mark it at 4.5. to make it a little easier to find that spot. Then for the, this is called a three stitch pamphlet stitch, which means it's going to be 3 stitches, and it's going to be 3 sets of holes. What I typically do is measure 1.5 inches down from the center page, not necessarily the very top of the book. 1.5 inches. In this case, I think I'm going to go full 2 inches in. Yeah, let's do 2 inches in from the top and 2 inches in from the bottom. Again, it does not have to be exact. Okay, let's go back to this side. Go about 2 inches in here and 2 inches in here. Okay, now I'm going to take this awl and I'm going to simply place it on the line and then fold my book over to make sure that I get it right in the crease. And I'm going to just gently turn it and it's going to go right through. There we go. See? It's not at all hard to punch that through. You want to make a decent size hole, but not too big, because it only has to accommodate that needle and thread. Some people just use the needle itself to make their holes. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to find those holes going in and out with your stitches. So I like to do it with the awl, which I said was not hard to do. And for some reason, this one maybe because it has extra layers for that pocket. There we go. And the top one. Put it up here. Also trying to make sure I can keep it on the camera. So I don't know that I have the best angle right now. Just turn it around. Okay. I also need to make holes, excuse me, in this piece. I'm going to turn it over to the back where I can see the cardboard. I'm going to mark it just the way I did the rest. And this also is 9 inches. Now, this is a little bit different. Because I have 3 signatures, I need to mark it in 3 places. But what I'm going to do is just mark it at 4.5, and I'm going to mark it all the way across that cardboard part. I'm going to go back to the 2 inches from the top and 2 inches from the bottom. Can you see that I've marked it just with my pencil in 3 places? Okay, and the reason I marked it across is because I need 3 sets of holes. Okay, I'm going to mark a line right through the middle. I'm just going to use my cutting mat to kind of make sure I get it in the right place. It does not have to be exact, but I can tell from looking at my lines that that's where I need my first set of holes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just take this awl and just press it down into the cardboard. Because this one has to go through a piece of fabric, it takes just a second, but it goes through. Not a big deal. The center one. There are other tools you can use for this. Some people have a book cradle that you can put the actual signatures in. I just need to make sure I get it through the fabric. And the third one right here. I'm doing the center set of holes first. And then I will go back and I will do the side ones. Okay, very good. Now, because I'm going to have 3 signatures, I also have to make 2 more sets of holes. And I'm just going to eyeball them, but you certainly could take your ruler and measure out, I would say about a 1/2 inch to the left and a 1/2 inch to the right along that same line. Okay. I'm probably not doing this the best way. Trying to keep it in frame. There we go. There's that one. And again, I'm just going to eyeball it or use the ruler, but not worried about marking this side. Okay. There's this one. This is the part that probably takes the longest. It's just getting these holes punched. I wanted you to see how to do it. Again, it's not the only way to do this. If I were sewing it directly into the book cover, I would just be making these holes in the spine of the book. Okay? And now I just want to go to the right side. I just finished doing the left side. This awl is not the sharpest, but I kind of like it that it's not too sharp because it gives me a little more control. It takes a little bit longer to make the hole, but I don't want it to just go through and kind of punch too quick and make too big of a hole. This is not the easiest process in the world, but it's so satisfying when you get your book made and you recognize that, wow, it was just cardboard and paper and fabric, and now it's an actual book. It's really a cool feeling. I love it. Alrighty, there we go. So now I have 3 holes at the top, 3 holes in the center, and 3 holes at the bottom. I know it's a little hard for you to see on camera, but please trust me on that. Okay? I'm going to hang on to that awl because I might need it to help line those holes back up. Okay? There we go. Now it's a little, I know on camera you're not going to see it from the top. I can see it here through the top of the fabric. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first, let's see, let me make sure. I think I wanted to do, yeah, I'm going to figure out which signature you want where. I'm going to start at the back set of holes. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to press this. Oh gosh, I didn't measure these. I'm sorry, I didn't mark these yet. Oh, when you're on camera, you forget this stuff. Okay, 4.5. And then 2 from the top and 2 from the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to press it right through all the layers of the center hole and just push it through. And then make sure that you don't pull your string all the way through. So when you get it to where you've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches left, hang on to that with your thumb or with something, because you want to take this same thread and you're going to press it through. Now I'm going to start with this set of holes here, not the middle, but the ones to the right. So I'm going to press it through this hole here. Okay, and that's going to begin to attach it. Okay, be careful when you're pulling it because you don't want to pull the string out. Okay, I'm going to go down towards the bottom here, making sure that I'm using the same row of holes, the back signature, if you will. And then I'm going to come over here and put it right back through the book. And I think I can wing it on this one. But if not, you can always mark it from the back too. I've done enough of these where I can usually guess it pretty close. I got that one right on target. Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky because I want to tighten that up a little bit, but not lose my end. Okay. So I'm holding on to the first end and I'm pulling it snug. There we go. You see how that's beginning to be attached? At this point, I need to go back down through the center hole where I started, through the book, and back through the center hole in that back row of the spine. Oop. And I just pulled the needle right off of the thread. That's okay. It's not a real big deal. This is a big needle with a huge hole, so it's not hard to thread it. If it was a tiny needle, that'd be another story. Thankfully for this project, you don't have to do that. Okay. You want to pull it a little bit snug, but you want to be real careful not to pull that initial end. Now I'm going to go to the top hole. In this case, I'm going to make sure I'm in the same line of the signature. In this case, it's going to be the back signature of the book, and I know I'm flipping it all around. And I'm going to just punch it through right here. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to grab, let me see, what did I do here? Oh my goodness, I think I lost my first, yeah, when the thread came out, I think I also messed up. Yeah, I think I did. Well, that's okay, I can fix it. When something happens, you just wing it and fix it. Okay, let me make sure that I've got it snug on the outside. You want it snug, but not so tight that it's going to tear, okay? Because you're still working with paper. Okay, I'm going to put this underneath. I know it's a little hard to see, but this stitch, if you will, I'm going to put it under the stitch. Whoops. And then that way one is on each side. And then just using my needle, I'm just going to tie that into a knot right there in the middle of the book. And I'm going to tie that 2 or 3 times so that it's pretty snug. Okay, and then I'm going to clip off one of the ends real long and the other one just however long it is. The reason I'm going to leave it this long is because I'm probably going to add some beads to that. Okay, this is now sewn to one set of holes in my spine, which flaps around. It looks kind of silly, but you can kind of tell where it is. Okay, you want to make sure you have all 3 pieces in that. It's going to be the back of the book. Okay, here's where you got to really pay attention. I've got to open this one and make sure that my pockets are on the bottom. The page that I already decorated is facing the correct way. And now I'm going to take my next signature and make sure that it is facing the correct way also. So the only one in this one I think that has pockets is the cover. So let me just double check real quick. Yep. So I want to make sure that my pockets of this cover are going to be at the bottom, just like the pockets of this cover, because you don't want to put it on upside down. It's not fun to have to take it back out again. All right, this is the other one that wasn't marked yet. So we're just going to mark the center real quick. Yeah, it would help to turn it over the right direction. These clear rulers are not my favorite, guys. I think I'm just getting old. Okay, 4.5 and 2 inches from the top, 2 inches from the bottom. There we go. Here we go. All right, once again, I need to thread this with a piece of wax linen, or forget what this is called, but it's really thick, sturdy thread. People use all different kinds. If you're making a real small one, you can even use like embroidery thread, but you don't want to divide it. You know how there's 6 strands in embroidery thread? You'd probably want to use all 6 if you were doing that. Roughly 3 times the height of the book. That gives you plenty to work with, makes it easy to tie, and leaves enough that if you want to create a dangle, you can do that too. Okay. Alrighty. We're going to take this one down through the center, just like the first one. It pops right through, real easy. Going to make sure that that end does not go too far. I guess you could tape that with some painter's tape or a little piece of washi tape if you really were worried. This one is going to be my center signature, so it's going to go through the center set of holes in the spine. Again, I apologize. I know you can't see that from the camera angle, but I can see it where I am. The holes that are already in there. Again, being careful not to let go, which I almost did, of this first hole. Okay. Then I'm going to come down to the bottom, and you could do the top one next. It really doesn't matter as long as you end up doing all 3 holes. That's all that matters. Okay. I need to turn this around because I'm right-handed. Now that I'm sure I got it going in the right direction, I just need to sew it from the right side for some reason. I guess that's just the way I do it. All right, I'm going to come back here on the seam, just below where I have that hole that marked. And if I'm off by a little tiny bit, it's not a big deal. It is not a big deal at all. It works just fine. Okay. If some of these paper clips are trying to sneak out, it's not a big deal either. Okay, let me just see. Pull this one. And now we're going to go back down the center one. And this is not pulled very snug yet, so you need to have a second. Make sure I've got it. Yep. Back down the center hole. The next stitch will go up to the top. You can turn it over to do it for that part if you want. I don't like to try to go through the spine piece and the signature at once because I feel like I can't see where I'm doing it. So I go kind of a little bit step at a time on this part. Okay, pull this up. Ooh, it's getting a little bit short. No, it's not. I'm good. All right, at this point, you just kind of have to hang on to it and check to make sure you've got it in the center holes if you're doing your center signature. Then just like before, I know this is tough to see. I should have used a different color thread to show you, I'm sorry. But there is a stitch right here, and I'm going to make sure that I put my needle under that stitch so that I end up with my strings, one on each side, for tying the knot. Okay, I'll tie it once, and twice, and once more for good measure. 3 times is usually pretty much enough. And again, you want to pull it snug, but not too tight. Now this string is going to be way too long, so I am going to clip a little bit of that off. Sometimes I don't know if I'm going to add beads to the dangles or not, so I just leave them long so that they'll be there in case I want to. One more time. 3 times the height. Thread it, and this one will be the front signature. In just a second, I will be ready for that. Okay. There we go. Now I gotta turn it back over. Now, you cannot check this enough times, girls. I'm telling you. You want to always make sure. Pockets at the bottom. This pocket's at the bottom. This page is facing the right way. Okay, my last signature, which is actually my first one in the book. Pocket at the bottom. I don't think there's anything else in this one that matters. Okay, start same place. Press through the center hole. Hang on to that little end to make sure it doesn't go too far. This time I'm using the first set of holes on the spine piece. Head through that way. Back up through the bottom hole. Oops, there it is. Okay. Boy, next time I know I'll use a contrasting color so you can see it better. Hope it's making sense though. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on the page or to put them in the comments, and hopefully I'll see them before you need to get frustrated with it if you're trying to make one of these. There we go. All right. Let's pull that a little bit snug to make sure it's attaching. I'm going to go back down the center hole. And again, this is called the pamphlet stitch, three stitch pamphlet stitch. You could do a 5-stitch pamphlet stitch if you wanted to, and there's numerous other ways to attach signatures to spines as well, whether it's the actual spine of the book or this type of spine that gets glued in. Either way. Okay, and back up the middle. Ooh, I pulled that a little too far. All right, I still do have an end, so I'm okay. Let me make sure that that is relatively snug. At this point, you can see that it still wiggles, but all 3 signatures are being attached to it. Okay, I'm going to take this one off, take the needle off for this one, I guess. Put the end under the stitch that's already there. Okay, so I'm going to tie that into a knot. 1 time, 2 times. Oops. Y'all, struggle is real here. Even I can barely see this thread. 3 times. Okay. Once again, it's extra long, so I'm just going to clip that off. If you're a little shorter on thread, you can make sure you cut it a little bit closer. I'm going to put this big old needle away so that I don't lose it. And my little needle book. Put my thread aside. And at this point, I can take off these paper clips because They really were just to hold the signature in place while it was sewn in. And in a moment, you should be able to see, oops, I know my fabric circle pocket is not attached yet. I wanted to make sure it was in the book right first. Okay, there we go. I'm going to shake it so you can see that they really are attached. They're sewn right in. Got one book of signatures, one coverless book. Now we need to add the cover, or add this to the cover. So what I'm going to do is come back to the cover, which by now has been sitting for a little bit, so this glue should be pretty good and set up. I'm going to add glue right here, and I'm going to press it right into the center. Again, making absolutely sure that the book is turned the right way. And look at that, it's backwards, it's upside down. The cover didn't matter, but the print on this part did. So now this is the top. My pockets are at the bottom. There's a reason I'm telling you this over and over, guys. I bet you can guess what it is. Yes, we have all sewn things in upside down, or glued them in upside down, and it's just so frustrating. You don't want to do that. I want to make sure that it's going to fit well. Yep. All right. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to grab my Fabri-Tac, and I'm going to be nice and generous with my Fabri-Tac on this part, because I really want this to stay in well. I'm going to put glue generously along the edges of this middle piece. I think you can see the strings a little bit going up and down. I'm going to go across them, back and forth, put lots of glue. I don't want to drown it in glue, but I do want to be pretty generous so that this will really stay in. This will have a little bit of some pulling on it as we work on it, as well as when it's being used as a journal by whomever it goes to. All right, now for this part, I typically hold on to the top and fold one end up to get me started on the placement. I'm watching at the ends, and I'm making sure that it's not down in the little ditches, if you will. I don't know what else to call them. Okay, let me grab a binder clip or just a big old paper clip here. I'm going to put this on the top of all the signatures just to hold it out of my way so that I can press down along the edges here. Again, I'm going to check to make sure that it folds up on the front and the back. Folds up really well. You might notice that I did not sew any of the signatures too close to the outer edges of my spine piece. I do that on purpose. I just feel like I don't want it to be sewn that close to the edge. I don't know if it would come off or not. When you first put this fabric glue on, if you find that you've put it on and it's not quite centered, you have about a minute or two where you could very carefully slide it just a little bit. Okay? I want this to really stick down, so I'm trying to stick my fingers right up under the stitching and really press it all the way down. You can also use a bone folder for that, which would be a good idea. I got a new pink bone folder. I got it from that amazing estate sale I went to last weekend, where I got my whale tail and all kinds of goodies. Scrapbooking pages, tools, you name it. I was just an absolute jackpot. What a blessing. Alrighty. I've got it all nice and snug down. And what I like to do is I like to leave this part clipped because I don't want it to lay it down and have it pulling against this piece. I can also just put this one up and even clip this one. Just really want to make sure. Now you can see some of these pages are sticking out a little bit. I'm not worried about that. There's plenty of time to trim those. There's lace that could be added. There's all kinds of things that can happen during the decorating process. Right now I'm just building the journal. Just building the journal. Absolutely building it. And here we go. Okay, that should have it pretty good. I do like to typically let it sit for a little bit longer than this to make sure that it is really grabbed onto it. I don't want it to slide out of place. Put all these paper clips back. Sorry, I just Bumped something there. Put them all back in. Alright. And let's see. I think we are probably good to go. Probably real good. Again, just wanted to press it down real good. One of the most wonderful things about junk journaling to me is that it does not have to be perfect. I can see that I've got a couple edges that are not lined up quite right. I may add a little tiny bit of glue in there just to make that lay down flat, but I'm not worried about it. And ta-da, we now have a junk journal ready to decorate. Let's see, let's find the top. Yep, that's the top. It is ready to go. You have 3 signatures sewn in, and all 3 are, this one is a little bit looser than I like. I may try to tighten that up just a tiny bit by just adding a couple more knots here. Sometimes they loosen up as you work on them. It's not going to fall out though, not at all. It's not going to fall out, and as I add lots of things to it, excuse me, my voice is going. As we add lots of pockets and tags and things to it, it's going to become thicker, and that may thicken up the strings as well. But I'm just going to tie it a little bit. There we go. Whoop. Find that string. If you don't want your strings to show, use a matching color. Okay, like I said, I could have sewn around some of these pages before creating the signatures and sewing them in. You could even go as far, and I've done this, to do like 99% of your decorating before you ever even sew the first page in. But for the purposes of this one, I wanted to do it this way. Again, you can see that I have plenty of space to add pockets and things. Now, also I want to decorate the front. This is where the fun begins. Actually, I enjoy constructing the journal, but once it's constructed, that's when you can really have fun. Here's that pocket that I made. I think it goes in the 3rd section. I can't remember where it is. Yep. It's back here in this.
Yeah, well, you were supposed to be out an hour ago.
I'm live in here. Sorry, family noises out in the back there. This pocket is ready to glue in. Let me go ahead and take that, glue it down since we have it here. Whoop, come on, top, come off, come off. I hesitated doing that just because I wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up during the constructing the journal part. And I've got this little cheesecloth on here that's kind of hanging all off the edges for fun and for texture. Alrighty, let's see. Gonna put that right here. That will be a fun pocket to have. It's a round pocket. It says a time for every season. This is my fall journal. I'll probably put lots and lots of things about gratitude in it. Lots of words for people, for prompts, for journaling prompts. And there we go. This page also has a paper clip cluster at the top, just clipped on. And a little tag just tucked under that. It has a pocket on this side, a double pocket with a couple of tags there, and a stationary, what do I want to call this? Hello. Another cluster over here, which you could also put something in. It's a pretty busy page already. You'll notice that this page is narrower than the others. That's not a problem though. It's okay. Doesn't make it wrong at all. Variety is something that you'll find is very common in junk journaling. So now we have one page decorated, but we have a book constructed. I think I'm gonna call it a night and get some decorations ready for you for next time. I will probably go ahead and ink the edges of these pages ahead of time because I love that look, but nobody wants to just sit and watch somebody ink edges. I'll also probably round a lot of the corners, maybe not all of them, but I like the look of rounded corners in my journal. It's just a personal thing for me. Sometimes I even round the corners where there's a pocket. Yeah, I do. I'll just show you on the first one. I have a corner rounder. You could cut this and just do it yourself if you didn't have one. I'll show you how I'm going to turn this folded up part into a pocket. This time I'm using the art glitter glue, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this top edge and just press it down. And I should have pulled out a small piece of silicone mat to put in there so I don't get glue in the wrong place. There's usually one hiding right under here. There is. There we go. Oh, there's two hiding under there. Put it under a page so that when I press it down, if some glue squirts out, it doesn't get on the rest of the journal. There we go. Now it is an actual pocket, ready to be decorated. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and do that to the other ones. If you need to go, I completely understand that. Have a wonderfully blessed evening. If you're making a journal, let me know. Put some pictures in the comments. I'd love to see how yours is coming along. And what's your favorite way of constructing your journal? This is just the way that I like to do it. Not on every journal, but on some of them. Alrighty, there we go. First one has a couple of rounded corners. I'll go back and round some more corners and get it ready for the decorating part. Take care, good night. Make sure that you keep an eye out. This Friday and Saturday is our crafty weekend. I'll be presenting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a mini junk journal, a grateful journal, put together very differently, much more simple than this one. You can get information from that on the group page as well as on my business page, and there's a link there for you to register. It's a free group with 14 different artists presenting Friday and Saturday, all different kinds of crafts. So take a look at the lineup, choose a few to watch to inspire you for some of your fall crafts. God bless. Good night.